What I am sharing is not to arm a side. There are already many sides. There are already many divisions to create one more. What I try to offer is an individual transformation, a way of being able to coexist with obstacles and dangers that can arise in life. Certainly man requires organization, and so that there is order, to avoid irrational chaos, to feel accompanied, to feel that you belongs to something, as to some religion, some sports club, some society, a committee, a party. In today's society, there is something called laws. Many of them are very old. They are nothing new. Many think that civil revolutions and wars at all levels have created new laws. Well, the same Hammurabi laws are still valid today. Only that they have been made up and softened. Those laws of human control have been renamed, but that is where much of our current civilization is from. I have been able to discover a worldview about my life, and I want to share it with you. Maybe it can be useful. Maybe you can see mistakes and talk about them to improve. This introduction will help you to be clear about the framework of the puzzle that we will be assembling throughout all the videos that we will be uploading in the 2 channels. Each video is a very small piece of the puzzle. Usually the pieces are all revolted. Personally, the simplest thing is to first assemble the frame or outline of the puzzle, then I put the pieces. In this way I am able to assemble the puzzle, so I have a reference that guides me to be able to assemble the painting faster. Some of the pieces I already have, others I will look for them, and according to the fence, I will expose them as clear and simple as I can. Another way that makes it easier to put together the puzzle is to identify sectors. In each sector highlights a color. For example, the puzzle of a landscape, the sky usually comes in blue, the hills are green, etc. The puzzle of life that I will expose throughout all the videos will be divided into sectors, but instead of identifying them by colors, we will identify them by means of a title, just so that it becomes easier for us to be able to take a reference to the landscape. A parenthesis. Only materialistic human beings put names to things. I know that maybe I'm falling into an error when I'm putting names and dividing things, but I would like to explain it more in detail in another video. I close parentheses. When you finish putting together the puzzle, you realize that you do not know where the sky begins and where the hills end. The sectors are part of an indivisible whole. Only that we are used to seeing everything under the fragmentary and isolated magnifying glass of the system. When you form the puzzle or puzzles and fill the most important pieces of your existence first, when you have a general reference and then fill the rest of the puzzle with smaller pieces, even though it is not completely finished, because it will be impossible to fill it. But anyway, if you move away and even if all the pieces are not there, you can visualize it and you will notice a panorama, an image that maybe and only maybe you will be able to decipher. In this decipherment, mistakes are usually made, but I think they are minimal. This way you can see what it is about and what that landscape consists of. Your brain is designed to complete missing pieces. You can see them even if they are not there. I want to tell you something very important. The puzzle or puzzle of life can never be filled in its entirety. There will always be gaps, but you have to be clear that the most important pieces in your life are the ones that you have to give them priority so that they are there, fixed, forming that landscape incomplete, but at the same time with harmony. There are many puzzles scrambled today, pieces upside down that desperate people try to form in their empty lives. Many people find such miserable pieces and put them there in the picture as if that was the most beautiful landscape of its existence. The videos will be divided into the following playlists. Some points you can find very biblical, because these entities have based their structures on laws and biblical customs, which are not really original laws of the Bible, but of much older laws, like the Sumerians. This is not because I believe and share your thoughts. This is because you have to know the beliefs and laws of those entities to understand why some humans think and behave like the trash they are. 1. Genesis. 2. History of the structures of the illusory world. 3. Here and now. 4. Relative present. 5. Our likely future. These will be the names of the sagas, and within these sagas I will create some videos with the title of Black Pinnacles. I classify them in this way, because it would be quite slow to go point by point from the Genesis to our days, so sometimes I will give you to know a video about the history of the structures of the illusory world, another day of the saga of probable future, etc. In this way the information is a little more dynamic and we do not concentrate only on the Genesis or the future. Many videos I will create with the concept of black blacks, where the miniatures will not be so flashy and the message will be very enriching. This is where advanced people can acquire the tools for a better understanding in videos that apparently do not make sense, and I will publish with images to make them more dynamic and entertaining for new people who want to join us. The videos will be numbered to make sense. In this way you can assemble the puzzle and you can understand many things that seem to make no sense, and yet they serve to live fully. Thanks to you will be aware of many things, but above all, of your own acts. Remember that the how, that is, the possible solutions, I will tell you in the Tao channel. Some analysis of movie fragments and song lyrics that I cannot publish in Tao, I will post on this channel. What I'm trying to offer here is awareness, a self-analysis, but also the background of events in history and what could happen. What does that help me? You ask me. That helps you to know the diseases that are stalking you. A disease does not appear from one day to another. A disease is progressive, silent, is incubated by harmful customs and vices that the same society has characterized as normal. After a while, the incubation gives way to the awakening of a terrible disease. Many people are sick, but they do not realize their illness. They just feel that something is wrong, but they do not know what it is. The average man will always follow the herd. That's part of his nature, trial and error. The caveman eats a fence. If nothing happens, then the other caveman also eats fences. If he dies, nobody eats those fences. This is how the primitive tribes used to discover new food, and that is how it is done today. They also create new medicine that has to be tested by a group of volunteers, guinea pigs, who pay them a certain amount of money, and if not there are secondary reactions. Then the supposed medicine can be sold to all humanity. But I will tell you something, it does not require medication. It is not required to be with trial and error. That is a stupidity that primitive people do, and they treat us primitive beings, when in reality nature provides us with truly effective things and without so much monetary cost. Only advanced beings know that avoiding some foods will also avoid many medicines. If your body is not intoxicated, you will soon leave a disease. However, if your body is loaded with toxins, any disease can cause serious problems without any complications, and this applies to the psyche and the spirit. We're attacked by all the senses. Taste, food, medicine, drinks, contaminated water, sight, junk entertainment programs, gore movies, news of violence, touch, shampoos, soaps, deodorants, beauty products, hearing, junk music, frequencies low in hertz, and smell, chemtrails, automotive pollution and pesticides. Who I am. I have noticed that the being, it has been tried to describe in several ways by several thinkers and spiritual beings. I will try to describe some of these ways of thinking. The being can start from the thought of the self-construction of oneself, that is to say that you can mold yourself, you can be who you want to be, once you have awareness of yourself and that you have the possibility of making of yourself someone intelligent, someone spiritual or a miserable being. Once you know this, there is no going back, because you already know. You can hide as you do not remember, but deep inside you will know, and if you want to do that, it would be like self-deceiving. Put obstacles to yourself to stagnate. In this way you'll be stuck and blame others for something you know deep down that is your responsibility. This is the basis of the thought of Jean-Paul Sartre. How many types of consciousness are there? Many people are aware of beauty, they know they're attractive and use that modality to attract the man they like. Be aware of money. Man knows he has money and believes that this is why he can be an imbecile. Conscience to hurt. When you're aware that many of your acts can cause damage, slowly recapitulate and in retrospect, you realize what triggers each act. However simple it may seem, the mere fact of existing results in the destruction of many life forms that will be sacrificed directly or indirectly so that you prevail. Between these lives are human lives. How many human lives does it cost to have a ring with an African diamond? How many human lives do it cost to have devices that require coltan extracted from Africa? How many spirits incarcerated in an experiment called MK Ultra costs you to have fun watching a Hollywood movie? Or listen to junk music? Because shoddy stars have been in prison so that sleepy people can enjoy snap garbage. The sheep are getting fatter, they are getting clumsier, and with junk food people become fat. With entertainment, junk, the spirit is enclosed more and more inside an unconscious and fat being. There is also that consciousness of power, awareness of knowledge, awareness of material possessions, awareness of the gift of speech, to be aware of your existence and your actions. You can either improve or worsen. Usually people know they have these skills when he owns them, but there are not many people who realize that they can perfect themselves. There is a trap here. Many people think they possess these things, but there is a double game. The possessed possess the people. They create an attachment. People think they are nothing when they lose these things. Soon technology will take away many of these characteristics that human beings have, and when this happens, what will remain of consciousness? Look like a domesticated animal when you want to leave it in its natural habitat. It can no longer survive, because it has lost its abilities. Everyone wants freedom, but do they really want freedom? Do you really know what that implies? Would we survive freedom? The human being is the living being that has a developed and complex language. This language differentiates us from animals and other living beings. The being has always been there, but hidden under the veil of materialistic illusion. The being is thrown when its activities are carried out automatically. Immerse yourself in history, explore the culture, philosophies, art, etc. But I recommend that all of them be primitive, because the more primitive and pure, you will find the essential, and the essential is where many currents are born, currents that distort the source. It is good to know some other thoughts of cultures that are not primal, but you will always know that the latter were born from the primitives. A very clear example is that of Carl Gustav Jung, who started from his primal being, like the being and time of Heidegger, which was based on the observation of the self. All this material is primal. I do not think it was with the pretension to manipulate, because it has not spread. Only the thoughts and laws that are disseminated remain, are those that these dark beings have created to manipulate and control, such as the Hammurabi Code, necessary to know about the shackles and bars of humanity. Anyway, we will talk about this code in future videos. It is enough to see so many dead people who have tried to help humanity. People who are really good, people who are truly altruistic, and who are in search of offering knowledge or services that are available to all freely and without usury. Enjoy. As a mestizo that I am, I wonder, who am I? I am many cultures. But it is necessary to know how I reflect those cultures. This I do through my language and habits. Here is where I realized that this is the basis to be able to have security in oneself. Many have security, but because they're in a boat, they have a life jacket, or maybe in a miserable bolla. But there are few that swim in the sea without any addition. And this is where you can really swim with your skills. You can see other people who also know how to swim without attachments, but do not approach them. They may sing to each other. It is best to keep distance and talk from a distance. Once a certain level of consciousness is acquired, it is necessary not to mention it to other people. The blind people who sail in this sea think that they swim by their own merits, without realizing that they're in a boat, board, or afternoon. Early it will sink, because all the ships have sunk or have sunk them on purpose. Many people do not see the course, because they are manipulated by the ship. In fact, nobody sees the course well defined, because the sea is unpredictable. But the difference is that the swimmer will only sink, because he decides to sink. In this way you'll swim next to people who think they're equal or better than you. I repeat, it is convenient not to say anything. It is convenient to be imperceptible. In this way you can be in harmony within a storm. If my language constitutes me, it will be necessary to do an investigation of my language. For the moment it is necessary to investigate the things that are inherent in my person, such as the language that I speak and my way of earning my living, as well as my habits of daily life, since these three factors are what make me up in the relative present in which I live. If I am aware that things are what make me up, there is a greater likelihood of having a security based on my being and not on objects that have me. You heard well. Objects that possess me. Nobody owns anything, and if you think that, you are very wrong. An example. I can own a car, but if it is stolen, then I will cry. Why do I cry? Because they have taken something from me that gave me security, something that served me. Then the car possessed me. When nothing possesses you, it is because you're really free. When nothing possesses you, you will never cry, you will never be worried. But this whole world is designed to own you. That is why we are stressed and afraid, fear that these material things no longer exist. We love our chains and we will demand more security. This is precisely the plan, so that you self-submit. In this way no one will put up resistance. Next I will enumerate some of the pieces of the puzzle that I commented at the beginning. 1. The language. The language is the most difficult to change or eradicate the being we are, but if you can enrich or know its meaning, this to be aware of what you say, because what you say is what you think and what you think is what you are. On the other hand, there is silence. Silence is a pure state of consciousness. That is why many wise men prefer silence, but many other wise men affirm that living far from society is self-absorbed of cowards who do not want to face the world. When I knew these two life streams, I set out to try to make a balance between spirituality and materialism, between the silence and the bustle of society. I have been tempted to abandon everything and go to the happiness of the total austerity, where there is no responsibility, where there is nothing to fight for. But it is true that this would be an act of cowardice. It is better to live in balance and acceptance of the world that I have had to exist. 2. Way to coexist materially. This is easier to change than to change the language with which we communicate, but that does not mean that it is difficult to make a change, since many of us are attached to what we do. We do not like to venture, to risk leaving what we do not like to do, but that is necessary to continue maintaining ourselves with a certain socio-economic level to live or survive. Mediocre work is a means to control people, since this is necessary to keep us busy and not enter into the supreme values of existence. However, this is part of what makes up our being. In your spare time, investigate the history of your work. In this way you will be aware of its origin and how it is conformed. How did your work come about? Why was it necessary to create that work? Who invented that work? Many work only to earn money, but do not know the reason for their existence. For example, it is said that the medical being was created to cure diseases. The philosopher Confucius tells us a story where doctors had to prevent diseases. They were paid by healthy people, and when people got sick they took part of their pay. Everything contrary to our Western way of life. 3. Family and friends. Many of us have a great attachment for our friends and especially for our family. It is curious how young we want a freedom where we do not have to depend on our parents. We want to be free and do what we please, but freedom implies responsibility. When I was younger I did not see this. Nobody explained it to me. There are times when parents hide things from their children, precisely because of the fear of getting lost, going away and seeing us very little, or maybe out of fear and to see ourselves under the lens of immature beings, to see ourselves with eyes of always you are going to be a boy who does not know what he does and needs of me, so that your existence is never in danger. I had not noticed this, and it is understandable, but at a certain point it is also selfish, since the ego is the one who finally manipulates lives, and those lives are precisely the people we love the most. Friends finally are the people who accompany us in this journey called life. We will find many disappointments, but we can also see truly plausible acts. The behavior of people is not static, and although many people want to say phrases like "never change" is completely wrong. We all absolutely change. Maybe there comes a time in our life where it seems we do not change anymore. That point is the of the illumination, and although it seems all immobile, all still, a tremendous energy is circulating inside that being that is achieving the apparent calm. Everything is constantly transformed. The only ones that never change are the dead, and not only the physically dead. I do not want to go into more details, because I intend to explain only a little of the theme that will make up the channels. 4. Information that nourishes your spirit. This is very important, because everything you capture through your 5 senses is what makes you stronger or weaker, in all aspects. You know, if the only thing that is novels and gossip programs, your being will be made up of gossip and scandals. If what you listen to is trap or reggaeton, your being will be made up of degrading rhythms and lyrics, with quite visceral desires, etc. 5. Habits of daily life. They are details that we do not realize what we do, but nevertheless we are satisfied. These are easier to change, in appearance, but willpower is required. Difficult path because you fight and spend energy unnecessarily. It requires love. Love what you do. If you love what you do, you will do it effortlessly. Willpower applied more than anything for vices and addictions, since these also imply a low passion that can be confused with love. Many say, I love beer, I love sugary things, I love shopping, I love fat. It is difficult to detach from something that you supposedly love. This is where willpower comes in, but as it was exposed in the video previously, to apply this willpower requires knowing the reason for those vices and addictions. If you do not have a reason why, you will simply think that this is completely natural, because the rest of society also does it, and our tendency, the primitive, is to follow the herd. This is a natural force in us, since we feel safe. If the apes see that you eat one thing and nothing happens to you, the others will also do it. We're established apes that eat, listen and follow what others do, but who give us food? Who tells us what to believe and what not? Food, schedules, cleanliness, order, discipline, our commitment to others, all these simple things are those that make up our person. Being consistent is what gives firmness to our being. My being is conformed by thought, physical and spirit. If you concentrate on only one of these three, you will be incongruous. You will feel an inexplicable emptiness. But really, if you have an explanation, now if my language, my culture, which is art, science, customs, politics, religion, economy, etc., are things, concepts that shape me. Personally, if I want to know myself, I have to know these things, and where they come from, my language. When a language develops and creates new words, it is because whoever masters that language is the source of the creation of the illusory world. Words like Google, nanobots, Internet, WhatsApp, Twitter, YouTube, fracking, GPS, www, byte, Oculus Rift, XPOX, PlayStation, DVD, USB, etc. are words of the illusory network that make up our relative present. These words are assigned to the creation of things that are shaping this illusory reality. These things we feel as real and palpable. Virtual reality will be a world where many will want to escape and not tell coming generations. Soon Chinese vocabulary will begin to shape our reality, because objects and inventions of this country will begin to come to market. I want to clarify that I am not against technology. In fact, I consider that technology is something wonderful that could be used for good, but as we saw in the video of the knives, anything or idea can be used for good or for bad, or there are simply people who do not know what they have in their hands and apply it to something they think is for the best, and, in a reckless way, that's where the error is even stronger. I also want to make the observation that if the technology is in the power of people who use it to control, submit and make known things that favor them, that technology is where I disagree. Silence is important because there is no confusion there. Everything is essentially pure and true. As soon as we begin to speak, everything is distorted and we create more vectors or intersections for the great fabric of this illusory network. Maybe this is falling into an error to be sharing what I discover, but in what other way can I do it? Without sharing the knowledge, each human being would have to start a search again, and that is only applicable in the spiritual. Teachers can help us but can never meditate for us. Unlike the material, many things can be inherited, and if you know how to work them, you can maintain them or increase them. Now, if people are always born from scratch and without roots, they will come to this world maybe not to obey the cultural customs and roots that have successfully eliminated globalism, if not to obey and be part of a globalist system, cold, devoid of values, dehumanizing and therefore devoid of spirit. The elite requires to create events, Since these are a means of distraction so that we do not discover our spirit, I consider that a primordial part of the conscience is to discover oneself, to know that there is something there, but with so much noise no one will be able to hear that spirit that cries out for be alone and silent for a moment. The events sail, be they negative or positive, they are true or false. If there are no events of any kind, there is no news, and if there is no news, all of us dedicated to communication would have nothing to do, therefore the world it would be happiness. This is paradoxical for me, because if I am ignorant, it is easier to be manipulated, but if I immerse myself in the information, it is likely that stress comes. I have discovered that whoever has roots can hold onto the ground, if the roots are connected to a flexible plant. Then it will be able to withstand the sudden and unpredictable changes. In this way, if there is stress without roots and without flexibility, it is very likely that I will also be manipulated and self-enclosed in a corral, because I can fall into news that does not they are real, or if they are real, but they are smoke screens designed to distract me from things that are really important for my existence and my spirit. This media management is done with the purpose so that our energy is used and to carry out their plans in an easy and fluid way. Fear, anger, these are some feelings that come before unpleasant news. Impotence to be able to solve things quickly. What can a single person or a small group do before injustices like the privatization of water? That's why they do not want an identity to be formed which unites us. What unites people as a nation? Poverty, the injustice, impunity. Who I am. A pathetic spectator of an entertainment program transmitted by a screen that makes me forget, for instance, things that will not be solved alone. Someone who obeys orders without knowing why he obeys them. It is necessary to carry out an order in a society, but only if this order leads to the welfare of society in general, knowing the background of the order, not only obey by obeying. Know where my language comes from, my religion, my laws, who created those laws. Why do I follow them? And if they are going to be modified, why will they be modified? Who is modifying them? Who did you ask for permission to make those changes? Do you do it for the general benefit of the people? Or just a few? Search where are my habits. If we do not know this, if you do not know, you're a zombie, someone who knows how to use things but does not know what purpose they were made. What is the energy and its structure so that it can work? Impossible to know all of everything. You cannot know all the machinery of a computer, a car, a refrigerator, a cell phone, but you can know the essential, but above all, the essentials of you, your spirit, your physique, your mind. We always want to know about other things, but we do not know about ourselves. We're ignorant of our abilities, we're ignorant of our weaknesses, and whoever ignores this does nothing to improve or perfect himself. My vision in life has led me to two types of existence: one, the material, and two, the spiritual, where the material has to be based necessarily on punctuality, respect, tolerance, discipline, commitment and seriousness. The spiritual one is based on freedom and love. A committed man cannot have freedom. A punctual man cannot have freedom. Freedom is spontaneous. Love is also spontaneous. If you feel love, there is love. You cannot force love, but if you can force yourself to be punctuality, if you can force yourself to be organized, a spiritual being is usually disorganized because he is free. He does things when inspiration comes, Some call him enlightenment. He is not interested in being committed to anyone. In fact, he does not have commitment, not even with it, is lost in it for love, not commitment. But you must be clear that to enter the world of materialistic progress, you must abide by the guidelines established not by you, but out of respect for people who they are managed under the rules of punctuality, discipline, commitment, seriousness, cleanliness, etc. If you do not like these rules, do not compromise. Do not play with other people's time. It's that easy. It's time you know that as time goes on, the virtual shackles will be tightened with more force, only that more sophisticated. The false freedom based on rewards will increase with the passage of time. This is a fact. You can see the YouTube channels. The most popular are those who do things that the elite likes, give them points in reward, and those mass followers. Who else has language? I think that we are not so unique anymore. The AI is a language that evolves by leaps and bounds. Our language is being reduced by idiocies and with an increasingly poor language. I am no longer so focused on language as I am on words. I am more interested in a language of silence, a language of the interior, perhaps, and only maybe. The AI cannot enter this language, but maybe it does. In order to know who I am, first I have to observe myself, make a self-criticism, but not destructive, but impartial. Do not put yourself on the good or the bad side. Observe your virtues, observe your faults, observe your skin color, observe your likes and dislikes. Be aware of the language you speak, what tradition of the dishes you eat, your religion, and if you do not believe in anything or anyone, why do not you believe? Is it because someone else told you? You must learn to feel, to pay attention to your feelings. Your physique is wise, listen to it. Many people do not listen to that inner being, because they heard that listening to the body are pure lies. That is called being lamb. Being a sheep is one that ignores what others tell you without even checking, without experiencing. There are things that are perfectly understandable that you cannot experience. You are not going to eat poison to see if that poison actually kills you, but the common sense that is the least common sense. This sense tells you what you can experience and what you cannot experience. For the moment I am interested in discovering one of the great civilizations that humanity has had. The Elk and two of his great daughters. The Toltec and the Maya. The Aztec I will study until the last, since it is said that this daughter was not born directly from the elk, but that I adopt the Toltec teachings in a wrong way. There is something inherent in me that calls me to discover are these great roots that have reached and hidden to the perfection of many people here in the Americas. As soon as I have knowledge of something that is worthy of sharing with pleasure, I will make a video. I invite you to discover and investigate those cultures and civilizations that they lived a long time ago where you now live. Research in various sources. Do not just stay with one, so you have points of comparison with what the official story tells you. Remember that the story is written by the winners, but what about the losers? When you realize the illusion in which you live, you understand that it is better to stay cheerful, but not happy for the world you see. Since that is subjective and ephemeral, you realize that your happiness does not have to depend on the illusory world. It does not have to depend on matter. True happiness emanates from you, and that when you'll laugh at things that are impossible to change, things that are always repeated. The story is always the same, only at different times. You're the only one that you can change and self-transform. If you live this unconsciously and without forcing anything, your world is very likely to change. Do not be naive and pretend that the illusion of these structures is transforming itself for the general good of humanity. What the elite offer always seems to be very good, and they precisely make it seem that way, because they want to be praised. They want humanity is always grateful for their benevolence. They will have the cure to many of the evils that they themselves have created. Now, why have I integrated a philosophy of life like Tao to my existence? This is because this way of seeing and living the world discovered by great Oriental teachers, for me is one of the non-dual ways of being here, living. I want to clarify that I am not a Zen or Taoist teacher, and therefore I fall into thoughts dual as politics. I'm aware of it, and this I do, because if you have a good government, I can concentrate better on living a common life. If I did not have a common life, I would not worry who was ruler, and by ordinary life I mean a person who works, who has a house, and who has responsibilities. In addition, there is good information and clues to access this spiritual world through Taoism and Zen. I want to clarify that these currents are not the only ones to lead a life of silence, a non-dual life, here and now, but there is not much information about the spiritual life of the Toltecs and Olmecs, because everything was destroyed to not continue with such a wonderful life. These civilizations did not use usury, the method of slavery that we have in the present. The Olmecs and Toltecs, they did not sacrifice people. As I said before, the Aztecs arrived when the Olmecs and Toltecs had disappeared. They misunderstood what they professed, and part of this misunderstanding was the sacrifices. But I am pretty sure that both Olmecs and Toltecs knew about spirituality. They knew about the and I knew how to live in the here and now. Anyway, I try to get as close as I can to a Taoist life, and that has helped me a lot to understand many aspects of ordinary life and spiritual life, and that is. Finally, I remind you that this is a summary that slightly touches some, not all the points that we will share in future videos. It is not all the content, it is not all the pieces. We will find many of them in the journey to be able to share them much more to detail in upcoming videos. This is my puzzle. This is what I am. This is what I will be sharing along these videos and writings. What is your puzzle?